The rain fell in thick sheets, drenching the city streets and turning them into rivers of silver and shadow. Wind howled through the alleys, rattling street signs and shaking loose newspaper pages. It was the kind of night that drove people indoors, seeking warmth and safety. But in a small alley behind an old bakery, someone had been left behind. The infant lay inside a wicker basket, wrapped in a thin pink blanket, barely offering protection from the biting cold. The baby's cries were lost beneath the roar of thunder, its tiny fists flailing weakly. A single piece of paper was tucked into the folds of the blanket, damp and barely legible. Her name was Lena. Miles Turner had been closing up his cafe when he heard it, a faint, broken wail. He frowned, pausing in the doorway, listening. The sound wasn't quite right. It wasn't a cat or a dog. It was a baby. Without thinking, he ran toward the sound, his heart pounding. His sneakers splashed through puddles as he turned into the alley, his eyes scanning the darkness. And then he saw the basket. "Oh my God," he whispered, dropping to his knees. The baby's face was flushed red, its tiny lips trembling from the cold. Miles didn't hesitate. He scooped the infant up, pressing it against his chest, trying to offer whatever warmth he could. "It's okay, little one," he murmured. "You're safe now." With one last glance at the empty alley, he hurried back inside. Miles placed the baby on the cafe's counter, wrapping her in a dry towel. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services.
"I found a baby," he said breathlessly. "She was left outside in the storm." The dispatcher asked for details, assuring him that help was on the way. As he waited, Miles gently rocked the baby, watching as her cries softened into hiccups.
"What kind of person leaves a baby out in the rain?" he muttered. He looked at the paper tucked in her blanket. The ink was smeared, but he could still read the words, "Her name is Lena. Please take care of her. I have no choice. I love her." Miles exhaled sharply. Whoever had abandoned her hadn't done so out of cruelty. This was an act of desperation. The police arrived first, followed by a social worker named Diane Marshall. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "You did the right thing calling us," she said as she took Lena into her arms. "What happens now?" Miles asked. "She'll be taken to the hospital for a checkup," Diane explained. "After that, she'll be placed in temporary foster care while we investigate." Miles hesitated. "And if no one comes forward?" Diane gave him a small, knowing smile. "Then we'll look for a permanent home." Miles nodded, but as he watched them carry Lena away, a strange ache settled in his chest. It wasn't his responsibility. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't supposed to walk away either. The police worked quickly, checking security cameras and asking around the neighborhood. But no one had seen who left the baby. There were no missing child reports that matched Lena's description. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. Miles couldn't stop thinking about her. He asked Diane for updates whenever she came to his cafe for coffee. "She's doing well," Diane told him one afternoon. "Healthy, eating well. She's in good hands." Miles hesitated before asking, "Is there a way? I mean, can I visit her?" Diane looked surprised, then thoughtful. "You're interested in fostering?" Miles blinked. I don't know. I've never even thought about it." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. He had already thought about it. Fostering a child wasn't a simple process. There were background checks, home inspections, parenting classes. Miles went through every step, feeling both terrified and determined. He was a cafe owner, not a father. He barely knew how to take care of himself, let alone a baby. But something deep inside told him he had to try. Weeks later, Diane called him. "Congratulations," she said. "You're officially Lena's foster parent." When he held her again for the first time since that stormy night, she blinked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Hey there, little star," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Looks like we're stuck with each other. Lena reached for his finger, gripping it tightly. And just like that, he knew he had made the right choice. Fatherhood was nothing like Miles expected. Lena woke up crying at odd hours, demanded constant attention, and turned his once organized life into chaos.
But it was also the best thing that had ever happened to him. She giggled when he made funny faces. She clapped her tiny hands when he played music in the cafe. She fell asleep on his chest, breathing softly, as if she had always belonged there. And in a way, she had.
Months passed, and then one day, Diane called him again. We found her mother. Miles felt his stomach drop. Her name was Sophia. She was 22, homeless, and had been struggling to survive. She had left Lena that night because she had no food, no shelter, and no hope. But she had never stopped looking for her. She's in a shelter now, Diane explained. She's in a program to get back on her feet. Miles exhaled. So what happens next? She wants to meet you. The meeting was arranged at the shelter. Sophia was young, fragile, but there was strength in her eyes. When she saw Lena, she let out a soft sob. My baby, she whispered. Miles watched as she held Lena, pressing her face into her soft curls. I never wanted to leave her, she said, her voice breaking. I thought someone else could give her a better life. Miles swallowed. She's amazing. Sophia nodded, tears falling. You love her. It wasn't a question. I do. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Sophia whispered, Would you want to keep her? Miles' breath caught. What? Sophia looked at Lena, then at him. I'm not ready. I don't know if I ever will be. But I want her to have the best life possible. And I think you can give her that. Miles couldn't speak. She should be yours, Sophia said softly. If you want her. The adoption process took months, but Miles didn't care. On the day it became official, he held Lena in his arms, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You're my daughter now, he whispered. Forever. Lena cooed, reaching for his face. Diane smiled. Looks like she's always known that. Miles laughed, his heart full. He had started this journey as a stranger who found a baby in the rain. But now, he was her father. And he always would be.